Hey, welcome back to this segment of Good Life Tampa Bay. You know, one of the great things about living in the Bay Area are the interesting people that reside here. So let's check out this Good Life Tampa Bay spotlight. I had a chance to visit with fashion designer Craig Taylor and his lovely wife, Yule, who's also a fashion designer at their beautiful loft studio office in downtown Clearwater on Cleveland Street. Since 1993, Craig Taylor has become a luxury lifestyle brand for women's tops, tunics, and shirt dresses. Women with high fashion sense covet his collections for striking prints, high-end fabrics, and flattering silhouettes. His list of celebrity fans include Hollywood A-listers, recording artists, first ladies, and royalty. His collection is available through fine specialty stores across the country and in major chains like Neiman Marcus and Saks Fifth Avenue. Like any artist, his collection is a form of expression.
It's almost this insatiable desire to create. It's like, we gotta create, we gotta create, we gotta create. So it's like I see inspiration, it's like, oh my gosh, that's great. I see that in a shirt dress. There's this focus, and it's driven along by this 6-month cycle of we better do it or we're gonna miss the season and we'll be out of business.
Craig has a unique background that laid the foundation for his fashion creativity.
My first job out of automobile design school was for a racing car company in Coventry, England, where the Jaguars are designed. I worked there for about a year, and then I was hired by Peugeot and Citroën in Paris to head up their advanced show car division. And so I was designing the exterior body shapes of these futuristic model concept cars. And I was designing cars, and then when I switched to designing architectural design in South Beach and racing boats and an espresso machine for some Italians who were doing an espresso machine, I had no idea that some months later I'd be in the garment industry moving quickly up to New York City.
Ultimately, Craig found inspiration to start designing fashion clothes and started from scratch.
In Miami, one weekend I just went out and bought an old sewing machine. It was just kind of a weird thing. And took apart my favorite Italian dress shirt and started sewing it back together again and made my own set of patterns, taught myself completely. And then my sister-in-law, she lives up in Chappaqua, New York, you know, where she had a lot of fancy friends who liked that preppy kind of button-up shirt look with really fine cottons. And she said, why don't you make one of those for women? You know, just use the same kind of shirt, but make it really fitted and put some style into it. And that was the start of it. It was about 15 years ago. The whole thing with Neiman's happened just because they saw a little ad. It was in a Japanese magazine, fashion magazine. I think it was Vogue Japan. Had come out, and by that time I was left Florida and I was living in New York. And they did this article on me, and I think the women's merchandise manager for Neiman saw the article and called me, and I was living in a tiny little apartment in Manhattan in Soho, and he came up there and he loved what I was doing and said, let's try it out in 3 stores. I was making every shirt myself on my 1954 Pfaff. It was a German sewing machine. I was in a tiny apartment that was like half the size of this room or less. And I would put a piece of plywood over the sink in the morning, put my sewing machine on that, put a big sheet of plywood over the bed, and use that as a cutting table, and I was making my own shirts.
Like most success stories, there was adversity and doubts along the way.
It was scary in the beginning because, you know, the first season worked well, so they wanted to put it out into more stores and more stores. Every season we expanded, and I had to figure out how to finance it, because you have to pay for this stuff before they pay you for it. So that was a big thing in the beginning. So I went to family in the beginning. I was like, hey man, you know, brother, I need to borrow some money. Hey mom, I need to borrow some money. You know, so we did that for a while. It was tough. Eventually we got a factor, which is like a bank. And then they you know, gave us a line of credit. So we were able to really grow that way.
From those early beginnings, success came, including a very special client who knows a thing or two about the White House.
I was doing a show in Washington, D.C., and I met someone who came up to me after the show and said, hey, would you like to have lunch with Mrs. Clinton? And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. And so that following weekend, after a lot of security clearance, I was sitting at a table with 39 other people. It was 40 people having lunch with Hillary Clinton, and that was a while ago. That was when she was doing her New York Senate campaign. And it ended up that for 2 years, I was her shirt maker.
Craig has lived in New York, LA, South Beach, as well as traveled the world, and he loves making his home in downtown Clearwater and predicts a renaissance of growth for the area.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the reasons why I moved here, is I like the energy of a city that's in the middle of a renaissance. I saw it on South Beach. I moved there in 1987. In early 87, when nothing had happened there yet, it was just retirement homes and dilapidated Art Deco buildings all along Ocean Drive. And in a year, I saw the place turn around, and I saw the formula for what it was that worked. I worked with the Miami Beach Development Corporation. I did architecture at that time, and I was helping friends, put up their kitchens and make their restaurants look great. And I feel the same energy happening. It's a little smaller scale, but the same energy is happening here in downtown Clearwater.
Craig's wife of 9 years, Yule, is also a fashion designer, and they have formed a special partnership being together.
To me, it's really like I get to do what I love most, and I get to share with a person that I love and get along with, and it really is a team effort, and we work together, and we, bounce ideas off each other, and I know that I have someone who can back me up and say this is not really going to work or this is going to work.
We share the same passion. We can look at something and say, wow, isn't that fantastic? Look at that beautiful design, or wow, I wish they would have done that a little differently. We're together pretty much all the time, so we have to get along well together, and we respect each other's opinions and each other's design.
In fact, Yule is launching an exciting collection of individually crafted handbags and scarves.
It was during our trip to the Philippines that I was inspired by the materials that they use in that country and the things that they're able to do with them. And also just the qualities on par with what we achieve in our shirts. So it really goes hand in hand, and I think coordinates with our shirts, and our customer will love it.
Let me tell you, we had such an incredible meeting. The Tampa Bay area is so lucky to have Craig and Yule Taylor as part of our community and contributing to the growth of the area. If you want more information on their chic fashion designs, be sure to check out their website at www.craigtaylorshirts.com. That's www.craigtaylorshirts.com.